I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, writing about my life as if it were some twisted TV drama. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Sarah for 7 years. At first, everything was perfect. We were the couple everyone envied: successful careers, a beautiful house, and a deep bond that felt unbreakable. But like all good things, trouble began to creep in, and I ignored the signs for far too long. In the last year, Sarah had started to change. It began subtly. She'd spend more late nights working at the office, but I knew her job as a marketing executive didn't require that much overtime. When I did see her, she seemed distracted, her mind always elsewhere. She'd often get a text and smile, but when I asked who it was, her answer was always vague: just work stuff. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. Then came the lavish trips. She'd return home with extravagant stories of conferences in exotic locations, details that seemed off. How could a marketing conference in Bali include a private yacht party? And yet, every time I questioned her, she'd brush me off with that bitchy laugh of hers. "You wouldn't understand how these things work, Jake. It's all about networking." I wanted to trust her, I really did. But there was this gnawing feeling in my gut, a feeling I'd been trying to drown with optimism. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner, I found her phone on the counter. I had no intention of snooping, but it lit up with a message from an unknown number. The notification read, "Can't wait to see you again, babe." My heart raced as I picked it up. It felt wrong, but I couldn't resist the urge to unlock it. I glanced through her messages, and what I found made my blood run cold. Not only was she exchanging flirty texts, but there were also explicit messages about meeting up, talking about how she couldn't wait to feel him inside her again. I felt sick to my stomach. I dropped the phone and held my head in my hands, trying to process what I had just discovered. I knew then that the late nights at work were nothing but lies, and this was more than just a fling. It was an affair. The confrontation happened quickly after that. I waited for her to come home, my heart pounding in anticipation. When she walked through the door, I confronted her immediately. "Sarah, we need to talk." The look on her face shifted from confusion to a defensive stance. I threw her phone on the table and it slid toward her, the screen still lit up with those damning messages. "Who the hell is this?" I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. She went pale, and for a moment I thought she might confess. But instead she snapped back at me. "It's none of your business, Jake. You're always so paranoid. This is just work stuff." Her eyes darted between the phone and me, a mix of anger and fear. "Work stuff? Really? Because it doesn't look like work stuff to me." I shouted, the anger bubbling over. I told her everything I had read, how I had trusted her and now felt like a fool. Instead of owning up to her actions, she became defensive, launching into a tirade about how I never appreciated her and that I was the one pushing her away. Everything she said felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe she was trying to twist this around on me. I felt a storm of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. It was like watching someone you love turn into a stranger right before your eyes. I listened to her excuses, her lies, but inside I was crumbling. How could she do this to me? How could she betray our marriage so casually? Days turned into a blur of pain and anger. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I replayed that conversation over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. My heart was shattered, and what hurt the most was the realization that the woman I loved, my partner, was capable of such betrayal. I didn't sleep much in the days that followed. Every time I closed my eyes, I was haunted by images of Sarah with someone else. The betrayal felt like a weight on my chest, suffocating and relentless. I was angry, hurt, and utterly confused. How could she go from being my partner, my confidant, to someone who could so easily lie and cheat? The next week was a whirlwind. I tried to keep things normal, go to work, pretend everything was fine, but inside I was unraveling. I couldn't face my friends, let alone talk to Sarah. We shared the same space but felt like strangers. I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but she never mentioned the affair. It was as if she believed by ignoring it, it would simply go away. Then came the moment when I decided I couldn't take it any longer. One night, after another awkward dinner, I confronted her again. "Sarah, we need to talk about what happened." "We can't just pretend it didn't happen," I said, my voice thick with emotion. She rolled her eyes, her trademark defensive mechanism. "What do you want me to say, Jake? I messed up, okay, but you're not perfect either. You've been distant and I got caught up in something that made me feel good." "It made you feel good?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "You think cheating on your husband is justified because you felt good? Do you even understand the damage you've done?" "What we had is gone, Sarah," but instead of breaking down, she fought back. "You always act like you're the perfect husband. You don't see how your neglect affected me. I needed excitement, Jake. You've been so wrapped up in your job and I felt alone." The blame game was exhausting. Every time I tried to address my pain, she deflected it back to me. I had thought marriage was about partnership, but it felt like I was in a war zone, battling for my own heart. It was infuriating, and the realization that she wouldn't own up to her mistakes made the anger fester inside me. As the days passed, I began to strategize. The thought of revenge crept into my mind like a snake, wrapping around my heart and squeezing. I spent time thinking about the pilot, the man who had stolen Sarah's affection. I didn't know much about him, but I knew he was the one who had come between us. He was the key to my plans. His career was bound to the very thing that had taken my wife away from me. I started digging. With some help from social media, I quickly discovered his name, Mark. He was a commercial pilot, and I learned that he had a reputation for being a smooth talker, charming women with his tales of travel and adventure. It made me sick to think about how easily he'd swept Sarah off her feet. I also found out he was based at a nearby airport, which meant I could easily find a way to confront him. As I planned my next move, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. I was stepping into unknown territory, but I needed to do something, anything, to reclaim my sense of self and my dignity. I couldn't just sit back and let her have her cake and eat it too. There was no way I'd allow Sarah to continue her affair without consequences. My nights became filled with sleepless plotting and my days with a simmering rage. I started envisioning how I would confront Mark. Part of me wanted to make him feel the weight of what he had done. I wanted him to know he wasn't just messing with some random woman. He was tearing a marriage apart. I wanted him to lose everything, his job, his reputation, whatever I could take from him. I knew that revenge could end up consuming me, but the thought of Sarah's betrayal felt like a fire igniting my resolve. I needed to make a choice, either wallow in misery or take a stand. I chose the latter, and from that moment I set my sights on ensuring that Sarah's luxurious travel lifestyle with Mark was over. No more first-class tickets, no more exotic getaways, just the grim reality of the choices she had made. I felt a dark thrill at the thought of what was to come. The plan was taking shape in my mind, and I was ready to execute it. I would show Sarah that betrayal has consequences, and in the process, I'd find a way to reclaim my own power. The next few days were a blur of plotting and gathering information about Mark. I felt like a detective in a crime drama, piecing together the life of the man who had invaded my marriage. I learned everything I could about him, from his work schedule to his social media presence. I even enlisted the help of a couple of friends who worked at the same airport where he was based. They fed me bits of information, adding fuel to the fire of my revenge plan. I discovered that Mark had a reputation for being a bit reckless. He had a few minor incidents reported, nothing that would jeopardize his career, but enough to show he was a man who pushed boundaries. It was satisfying to learn that he wasn't as untouchable as he might have seemed. I just needed to dig a little deeper to find something that would expose him. I knew my confrontation with him had to be perfectly timed. I waited until I found out he had a flight scheduled for early Friday morning. I planned to show up at the airport before his departure, where I would catch him off guard. The idea was to confront him, but not just for the sake of unleashing my anger. I wanted to create a scene, one that would ensure the repercussions of his actions would ripple out and impact Sarah as well. Friday morning came, and my stomach churned with a mix of anxiety and excitement. I arrived at the airport early, dressed in casual clothes to blend in with the crowd. The bustling terminal was filled with travelers scurrying to their gates, oblivious to the drama that was about to unfold. I found a spot near the gate where I could watch for Mark, trying to steady my nerves. When I finally spotted him, my heart raced. He walked confidently through the terminal, carrying his pilot bag, looking every bit the part of the charming man who had stolen my wife's heart. He had a smile that melted hearts, and I could see the way people gravitated toward him. It made me sick. I took a deep breath and approached him, forcing myself to act calm. "Mark, right?" I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Yeah, that's me. Can I help you?" His demeanor shifted quickly from surprise to curiosity, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You're the pilot who's been screwing my wife, aren't you?" The words flew out of my mouth with an intensity that felt exhilarating. The thrill of confrontation surged through me, and I watched as his expression changed from confusion to alarm. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, suddenly defensive. "You've got it all wrong." I leaned in closer, lowering my voice, as if sharing a secret. "No, I don't think I do. I've seen the messages, Mark. I know what you've been doing with Sarah." I paused for effect, letting my words sink in. "You think it's okay to mess with someone's marriage and get away with it?" He glanced around, clearly uncomfortable with the scene I was creating. "We can talk about this somewhere else," he suggested, his voice low. I shook my head. "No, we're going to talk about it right here. You need to understand the consequences of your actions." I watched as he glanced at the people milling about the terminal, a few of them already taking notice of our confrontation. Good, I wanted him to feel the shame. "Look, man, I didn't know," he stammered, trying to backtrack. "She told me you two were separated." I felt a surge of adrenaline at his admission. "Separated? Is that what she told you? She's been lying to both of us then." Mark seemed to falter, the bravado slipping away. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble." "I thought you thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "That it was okay to sleep with a married woman, that you could charm your way into her life without any consequences. You're not as slick as you think, Mark." By now, more people were watching us, some pulling out their phones to record. I felt a rush of power. This was what I wanted, his reputation tarnished, even if just a little. I had to make sure he understood that he wouldn't walk away unscathed from this. "I could ruin you, you know," I said, my voice low and threatening. "Your job, your credibility, all of it could be over in an instant. You think the airline would keep you on after this? Think again." His face paled, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his eyes. It felt good to see him squirm. "Please just calm down, let's not make a scene," he pleaded, his confidence crumbling. "Too late for that," I shot back. "This is what happens when you make a choice to betray someone. You lose everything." I could feel the weight of my anger lifting, replaced with a sense of control I hadn't felt in days. It was empowering to confront him, to make him realize the damage he'd caused. As I turned to leave, I made one final remark. "Enjoy your flight, Mark. I hope you think about the mess you've created the whole time you're up there." I walked away, feeling a mixture of triumph and relief. I'd done what I set out to do: confront him, make him feel the weight of his actions, and remind him that no one gets away with hurting others without consequences. But I knew this wasn't over. I still had to face Sarah and deal with the aftermath of my actions. What would she say when she found out what I had done? I could only imagine the chaos that awaited me at home. As I drove home from the airport, adrenaline coursed through my veins, mixing with a sense of dread about what awaited me. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and anxiety. I had confronted Mark, made him aware of the consequences of his actions, and for the first time since the affair was revealed, I felt like I had taken control of the situation. But now, the reality of facing Sarah loomed ahead like a storm cloud. When I walked through the door, the atmosphere in the house was tense. Sarah was sitting in the living room, her body language closed off as if she was waiting for me to say something. I could see the worry etched on her face, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then, remembering the betrayal, the anger surged back. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice tight. "I was at the airport," I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. "I had a little chat with someone." Her eyes widened, and I could see her mind racing as she processed my words. "What do you mean, a chat? Who?" "Mark," I said simply, watching the color drain from her face. "I confronted him about the affair." "Jake, you did?" Her voice shot up an octave, betraying her panic. What did you say? I told him about you. About the lies, about the texts, about how he's been sleeping with my wife. I said, my anger boiling over again. He didn't even know you were married. You told him we were separated, didn't you? She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The silence between us was deafening, filled with the weight of the truth. Honestly, I didn't know he'd be so reckless, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought it was just fun, a way to feel excitement again. Excitement, I echoed incredulously. You destroyed our marriage for excitement. You're unbelievable, Sarah. You think this is some kind of game. I was lonely, she snapped back, her defenses rising. You were always working late. You didn't notice me, you didn't care. I felt my blood boiling. And cheating on me was the solution. You thought that was a good idea. You have no idea how much pain you've caused. She stood up, her hands trembling. You don't get it. I was trying to find a way to feel alive. You were so distant, so absorbed in your job. I thought maybe if I had a fling, it wouldn't matter because we could figure it out later. My heart raced, but I pushed through the anguish. You thought it wouldn't matter. You thought you could just replace me with some pilot and everything would be fine. You've shattered everything we built together. I never meant to hurt you, she cried, tears welling in her eyes. I thought it was just a phase. I didn't think it would go this far. I felt a pang of sorrow at her tears, but I quickly pushed it aside. You can't just throw away our life together because you were bored, Sarah. This isn't something that can just be swept under the rug. I'm sorry, Jake, I really am, she pleaded, her voice shaking. Can't we work through this? I love you. I just made a mistake. I shook my head, feeling the weight of my anger and hurt. Mistakes don't involve lying and sneaking around. You can't claim to love someone while cheating on them. You need to understand that actions have consequences, and this isn't something that can be easily fixed with an apology. She sat down on the couch, burying her face in her hands. What do you want me to do? She sobbed. I can't lose you. I'll do anything. The desperation in her voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't let it sway. I had to stand my ground, but the thought of losing her was unbearable. Anything? What does that even mean? Can you promise me you'll never cheat again? Can you promise me you won't lie about it? I swear I won't, she said, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I didn't think it would go this far. I was stupid, Jake. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. The raw emotion in her voice was palpable, and I felt my resolve wavering. But I knew deep down that trust was broken, and no matter how much I wanted to believe her, the doubt lingered like a shadow. I need time to think, Sarah. I can't just jump back into this like nothing happened. You need to understand how deep this wound is. Her face fell as she listened to my words, and for the first time I felt like I was getting through to her. I'll give you time. I just hope you don't walk away from me, she said softly. It was a fragile moment, one where the future of our marriage hung in the balance. But I couldn't make any promises. My heart was heavy with the burden of betrayal, and even as I looked into her eyes, the love we once shared felt distant. I turned away, needing space to process everything. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying the day's events in my mind. I had confronted Mark and exposed the affair, and now I was left with the shattered pieces of my marriage. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow, and that nagging thought in the back of my mind. Was it possible to forgive her? To rebuild what had been lost? As I drifted off to sleep, I knew I had a tough decision ahead. I needed to weigh my feelings and determine if love was enough to mend the fractures in our relationship. But one thing was clear: I would never allow this to happen again. I'd emerged from this ordeal with a newfound sense of strength, and I was determined to protect my heart, whatever the outcome. The following days were filled with a heavy silence as Sarah and I navigated the aftermath of our confrontation. I returned to work, but my mind was miles away from my responsibilities. I felt like a ghost moving through life, lost in a fog of betrayal and uncertainty. Each time I saw Sarah, I was reminded of the distance that had grown between us, a chasm filled with mistrust and pain. Sarah tried her best to reach out, making small gestures to prove she was serious about repairing our relationship. She would send me texts throughout the day, asking how I was feeling, and even made dinner when I returned home. But every time she did, I felt a sharp pang of resentment. It was hard to reconcile her efforts with the harsh reality of her betrayal. Cooking dinner wasn't going to fix the damage she caused. One evening, as I returned home, I found her sitting on the couch, nervously fidgeting with her hands. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice tentative. I nodded, bracing myself for what was to come. I wanted to believe that we could work through this, but deep down I was still conflicted. "What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I've been thinking about everything and I realize how selfish I was," she began. "I want to make it right. I've even considered seeing a counselor to help us work through this together." "A counselor?" I said, surprised by her suggestion. "You really think that's going to help?" "Why not? I mean, it's clear we can't just figure this out on our own. I need to understand why I made those choices and how we can rebuild what we had," she explained. I studied her face, searching for sincerity, and there was a flicker of desperation in her eyes. Maybe she really wanted to change. But could I trust her? My gut twisted with doubt. "I don't know, Sarah. I'm still processing everything. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to believe you and feeling this betrayal." "I understand," she said, her voice softening. "I just want you to know that I'm committed to making it work. I miss us, Jake. I miss you." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I felt a twinge of nostalgia. I remembered the way we used to laugh together, the little inside jokes we shared, and the dreams we had for the future. But those memories were now clouded by the recent pain, and I struggled to reconcile the two. "I just don't want to feel like this forever," I admitted, my voice trembling. "It hurts too much. I wish we could go back to the way things were, but I don't think that's possible." "We can't go back, but we can move forward," she said, her determination shining through. "I'm willing to put in the work. I'll do anything to earn back your trust." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. Could we really move forward? I wanted to believe it was possible, but the doubt loomed large. "You need to understand that this is going to take time. It won't be easy," I replied slowly, hoping that my words would convey the seriousness of our situation. "I'm ready for that," she said, her eyes pleading for a chance to prove herself. "I just need you to give me that opportunity." As I sat there, I realized that a part of me still loved her, despite everything. I wanted to believe in the possibility of healing, but the road ahead felt treacherous. "Let's take it one step at a time," I finally said. "We can look into counseling, but I need to know that you're fully committed to this." "I promise I am," she said, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I'll show you." Over the next few weeks, we began to navigate this uncharted territory together. We attended counseling sessions and explored the underlying issues that had led to her infidelity. Sarah opened up about feeling neglected and unappreciated, and I shared my struggles with work and how it had affected our relationship. The sessions were intense, filled with raw emotions and honest conversations. We were forced to confront our issues head-on, and while it was painful, it was also empowering. I had never seen Sarah so vulnerable, and it allowed me to see a different side of her, a side that wanted to change and was willing to fight for our marriage. But even as we made progress, there were moments when I felt the weight of her betrayal creeping back in. I would find myself staring at her during dinner, memories of her affair flashing through my mind. It was hard to shake off the feeling that a part of her would always belong to someone else. One night, after a particularly emotional counseling session, I found myself pacing the living room, battling with my emotions. Sarah came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Jake, please don't shut me out," she said softly. "I'm here, I love you." "I know you are," I replied, my voice strained. "But it's hard for me to forget. I want to move forward, but I feel like I'm always glancing over my shoulder." She turned me to face her, looking into my eyes. "I'm sorry for everything, but I'm not that person anymore. I want to be better for us, just give me time." I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I want to believe you, Sarah, I really do, but it's going to take more than just words. I need to see actions. I need to know that you're committed to this." "I will be," she promised, her eyes earnest. "I'll prove it to you every day." As we stood there, I realized that while the path ahead was still unclear, we were both willing to put in the effort. I had learned that love could withstand the deepest of wounds, but it required trust, honesty, and a commitment to change. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could find our way back to each other after all. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and I continued our counseling sessions, striving to rebuild our marriage piece by piece. It was a long, often grueling process, but I began to see glimmers of progress. Sarah made a genuine effort to reconnect with me, and I found myself opening up to her as well. We were learning to communicate, to express our needs and frustrations, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were on the same team again. I'll never forget the night when we finally reached a turning point. We were sitting on the couch, watching a movie, but the film had faded into the background as we talked about our relationship. Sarah looked at me, her eyes serious. "I know I messed up, Jake. I can't change the past, but I want to make sure you never feel neglected again." "Neglect is only part of it," I replied, trying to articulate the complexity of my feelings. "It's about trust, Sarah. I need to know that you're committed to us, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard too." "I am committed," she said passionately. "I've realized that my actions were a cry for help. I was feeling lost, and I thought running to someone else would fill that void. But all it did was create a bigger one between us." I appreciated her honesty. It wasn't easy for either of us to face the truth, but I felt like we were finally getting somewhere. "I want to believe you," I said, my voice softening. "But it's going to take time for me to fully trust again. It's not something that can be rushed, and I need you to understand that." "I do," she replied, her voice steady. "I'll wait however long it takes. I'll show you with my actions that I'm serious about this. You're my priority now." With time, I began to feel like we were rewriting our story together. We created new memories, slowly learning to cherish the good moments again. We took weekend trips, explored new restaurants, and even started rediscovering our shared interests, things that had faded away during the rough patches. It felt like we were dating again, which helped ease some of the tension that had built up in our relationship. But even amidst the healing, there were moments of doubt. Sometimes I would catch her staring off into space, lost in thought, and I would wonder if she was thinking about Mark. Those thoughts would creep in uninvited, and I'd have to remind myself that dwelling on the past wouldn't help either of us. One evening, while cooking dinner together, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "Jake, I want to talk about Mark," she said haltingly. "I think it's important for us to address it." I was taken aback but appreciated her willingness to confront the elephant in the room. "Okay, what do you want to say?" "I'd like to tell you that I understand if you still have feelings of resentment or anger toward him," she said. "I want to acknowledge that what I did affected not just us but you personally. It's a part of our story now, and I need you to know that I deeply regret my choices." I nodded, absorbing her words. "I do still have those feelings. It's hard to shake them off. I think about the way you talked about him, how you felt with him. It stings, and it's something I'm working through. I want to make sure you know that I chose you," she continued, her voice firm. "I've chosen you every single day since I realized how much I was risking. I'm committed to being better, not just for you but for us." That night, we talked late into the evening about our past struggles, our mutual desires, and our dreams for the future. It felt cathartic to finally lay everything on the table, to be completely honest about our fears and our hopes. By the end of the night, I felt lighter, as if we had shed some of the weight of the past together. Months passed, and I found myself falling back into a rhythm of love and trust with Sarah. It wasn't perfect. There were still bumps along the way, small misunderstandings and moments of insecurity, but we faced them together. We continued attending counseling, and sometimes Sarah would bring up her feelings of guilt, the darkness that came with knowing she had betrayed my trust. But we'd learned to discuss these feelings openly, which made the journey feel less lonely. Today, as I reflect on that tumultuous time, I realize that while the scars of betrayal will always be part of our story, they've also shaped us into stronger individuals. I've learned that love isn't just about the blissful moments. It's also about how we handle the storms together. I now understand that relationships require constant effort, communication, and a willingness to forgive, both the other person and oneself. The journey isn't easy, but it's possible. Sarah and I are working toward a future that feels hopeful, and with each passing day, I'm reminded of why I chose her in the first place. If there's anything I can share with others who find themselves in similar situations, it's this. Healing takes time, but it's worth it when both partners are committed to working through their issues. It's a painful process, but through honesty and vulnerability, you can emerge stronger than before. And most importantly, never underestimate the power of love and forgiveness.